yourselves.
I'm Robin Gregory with the Homestay Network.
Jackson Tierney, also Homestay Network.
Holden Mask with Sunshine Request.
John Ellis, TDA Finance Committee.
Rick Bell, Engadine Inn and Candler.
Tina Kinsey, Asheville Regional Airport.
Sarah Skinner, West Asheville.
AJ O'Leary, Mountain Express.
Jane Anderson, Asheville Independent Restaurant Association, AIR.
Tim Collins from North Asheville.
James Barnes from North Asheville.
Tim Bradford, Sports Commission.
And Hannah Dosa with Export Asheville.
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy day. Before we launch into the fun stuff like approval of minutes and that sort of thing, I wanted to acknowledge a couple of our board members. I want to thank Leah, who's not here today, for sponsoring the summer social for all of our colleagues, and for the backpack drive, where they got like almost a couple hundred backpacks for underprivileged kids for going back to school. Also want to acknowledge Himanshu, who is not here, and his wife Swati, who have been kicking off the second year of the Horizons program, which is a summer learning experience for underprivileged kids at Carolina Day. It's a great program. Kids getting all kinds of life experiences and academic learning, and it's got a lot of support in the community among people, various wives, Lane Trova, and others who are actively involved in that. Also want to acknowledge Andrew and his awesome foundation for a $1,000 grant to the Playground Stage, which takes care of theater classes for elementary school kids. Awesome Foundation is a national organization, but they have local independent chapters, and so Andrew established that one here locally, and they're doing good work. And last but not least, I want to congratulate John Luckett for his daughter Madison making Player of the Year as a sophomore in soccer for Western North Carolina and leading her team to the championship game. So she's an all-state player. And
That's amazing. I'm getting recognized for her.
And one day maybe we'll say, hey, we knew Maddie's dad. It'll just be Maddie's dad. And one more, I want to acknowledge Bob McMurray. It's his last BCTDA meeting. He's retiring June 30th as Executive Director of Black Mountain Swannanoa Chamber of Commerce after 25 years. He started in high school. And we appreciate his support and look forward to staying in touch with him and getting his advice as we all go forward.
Thank you. It's been a good ride. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob, for all you've done. And soon we'll have
Your
our
seat's right here, Bob.
session in the back, Okay, now I'm going to open a public hearing to receive input and comments related to the Buncombe County TDA's fiscal year 2019-2020 budget. Does anyone wish to make comments about the budget? You'll have up to 3 minutes, similar in format to what we do at the city council meetings. Any comments on the budget, which we had up there last. Okay, if no comments, I'll close the public hearing. Next, I'm going to do the financial statements with John.
Morning. Okay, so on page 1 is the operating funds budget actual report. In the second column, under the current month actual, you'll see for the month of May, revenues total $1.5 million. Expenditures were $729,000. Revenues exceeded expenditures by $729,000. And the what you want to talk this morning? Need more coffee. For the month of May, the total net change in fund balance is $5.8 million. Let's see, in the fifth column, percentage of budget used, you'll see that we have elected 89.2% of revenues. Down under expenditures, we have expended 51.5% expenditures. In the last column, percentage change from the prior year, occupancy tax revenue is up 9.5% over the last year. Going to page 2, this shows shows the split, the 75-25% split for occupancy tax between operating and the product development fund. Under the operating fund, you'll see that revenue we reported on page 1 in May relates to room sales in April. Revenue from room sales is down 2% from the same time last year, but that is expected because of the 25% increase that we had last month due to the timing of payments we received last year. Do you remember that conversation we had with them?
I think the blended increase over those 2 months is 6.5 points.
Right, that's correct. Let's see, going to page 3, the product development fund summary as of May 31st. $23.3 million is committed to projects and $651,950 is allocated to administrative expense. Expenditures to date for this fund total just over $2 million. Page 4 is the balance sheet. This shows a snapshot of assets and liabilities as of May 31st. And then page 5 through 8 are the comparative tables which show the breakout for room sales and property tax, occupancy tax year over year, and it breaks it out by the various types. You have hotel, motel, vacation rentals, bed and breakfast, and so on. Pretty uneventful report. It's just like I like it. So, any questions on it?
Any comments or questions? Can you get a motion for the approval of the financial report? Those in favor? I was remiss in not getting approval of the meeting minutes. I'm joking about it, so could I ask for approval of the meeting minutes from 5/29? Second? Those in favor? Thank you so much.
Thank you. I just want to give you a quick update about the Tourism Management and Investment Plan, TMIP. Just a reminder that we're in phase 1, which is all about assessment, and so the project team has been doing a deep dive in economic and retail and capacity analyses, but we also have started a series of meetings with stakeholders. The project team has met with the city team and the county team. We had the first meeting of the Community Leadership Council, which is comprised of 50 leaders from people who are chairing commissions with the city, to neighborhood representatives, to educational institutions and elected and staff leadership. And so we had our first meeting. We did a follow-up email that provided additional opportunities to, now you've thought about it, so if you want to, provide additional responses, also asking this group of people for plans or documents that they think would help inform. The meeting was a public meeting, and people who attended also were able to provide written responses for the same set of answers, and a compiled list of the kind of top responses has been distributed. We are finalizing, hopefully this week, maybe next week, finalizing the dates for the next round of public engagement. Right now, we're anticipating 4 public workshops that we would heavily promote to get members of the public in. We're planning to have those at morning times and evening times at different locations to try to make them as accessible as possible. We also are hoping to finalize a community sentiment survey in the next 2 weeks to get that out the door, to be able to provide additional opportunities for input from the public. Just a reminder that there's a website for people to follow the progress of this project. It's exploreashevillecdb.com/TMIP. And we've been posting any documents, and, meeting notices there. There's also a link for anyone who wants to sign up to receive an email, notifying them of any significant changes or any public meetings, and there's a feedback button, on the website. So, are there any questions or feedback?
Steph, I think all that sounds great. We've gotten some emails and heard some comments at the city that, still is sort of in the wake of that first meeting that, there are people who still don't feel included. But it sounds like these public sessions will be a good opportunity. That would be a good place for people to provide their input. Can you talk a little, do you know yet what the format of those meetings is going to be?
No. PGAD has been asked to give us a detailed plan for what the format will be and what the engagement will be, and we basically envision it as a hands-on workshop. The Community Leadership Council meeting was not required to be a public meeting, but the public was invited to observe, and there was some communication by various groups that established the expectation that that was a public input meeting, and we were unaware of that until after the meeting, and so that created some expectations that were unmet. This process has always included a plan for completely open, unfettered amounts of public input, but it's always been envisioned to happen at the end of phase one, so that, we had, more of a data gathering platform to discuss with the community. So we're moving right along, and there are these meetings are all kinds of meetings. So it's I just ask the community to recognize that there is a process, and that this is a really important work. It represents a really monumental shift in the way that we approach planning. The name of the process is long but intentional, that it's about tourism management and investment, and that, what has typically been an application-based process where you apply, the committee decides, the board votes, we're now investing a year of community engagement to try to align the needs of the residential community with the goals of this source of funding. So.
I think the challenge was initially, everybody wants to give their input, and, everyone has their, strongly felt opinions, and there were like 40 business leaders from the community here. We were trying to get input from them, which is what that focus was, and I think, it was just a misunderstanding of what the goal was, and we're going to give everyone a chance to.
And I would add that the Community Leadership Council is not only business leaders, but it's also neighborhood representatives and, commission leaders, and so it was comprised to, be people who represent lots of other people, and we were trying to set them up to be able to work with their networks to provide information about the project, and also garner their input and their participation as these public input sessions are available. So, we're looking forward to handling that next phase soon. So, we think that we're on track to be able to present the phase one findings the week of September 12th. And so, that's part of that, meeting and presentation schedule that we're working on to Yeah, that's been a big point of discussion in our budget meetings for a lot, you know, as the budget was prepared the last 2 years. But I mean, I would point out that there's been a mix of lodging types. It's always been, you know, part of this destination from, you know, cabins and vacation rentals and hotels and motels. So, yeah, we've been, as you know, cognizant of that shift and the potential impact on revenue. Are there any other questions or observations about the dashboard?
Just to comment on that, it's really great to see the airport passengers and the comment with the comparison between last year and this year. If you look at it, so
Yeah, Jane Kinsey's here from the airport. They're doing amazing. And, you know, what's so exciting about that is, you know, airports are so central to the economic vitality of an area, so that the people who live there, you know, can access where they need to go, you know, for their business needs and their interest in traveling to visit friends and family and go on vacation. And so, you know, tourism helps bolster, you know, the success of those routes so that residents have the opportunity to, you know, have access to air travel. So that garage that was just built is pretty much full. One thing I can tell you, Tina can chime in if she wants to, but the airport is constructing a couple of temporary parking lots, you know, to be able to meet the demands of the increased passenger count. I think that'll be a welcome addition. I think that's slated to be done pretty soon.
They're starting, it really will be done in the fall, most likely.
Just around the corner, right? Also,
Yeah. That's true.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Well, hearing no other questions, I will conclude my report.
Okay. I'm gonna turn it over to Chip Craig, to talk about our operating budget and the building project.
Thank you. On behalf of the BCTDA Finance Committee, I present the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget ordinance for approval. The budget ordinance was posted on the exploreashevillecdb.com for public inspection on May 10th. The ordinance detailed budget and program of work that was presented by Stephanie at the May 29th meeting has not changed. A public hearing was held at the May 29th meeting after the budget was presented. We had another one this morning as we started the meeting. And a public notice was placed in the Asheville Citizen Home Legal section. At this time, does the board have any questions about the budget? I'd like to make a motion. I move to approve the budget ordinance as presented, adopting the BCTDA fiscal year 2019-2020 operating budget in the amount of $19,358,035. The TPDF admin budget in the amount of $504,950, and the earned income budget in the amount of $145,000.
Those in favor? Any opposed?
I have a,
Let me introduce that. So we also have, we're presenting an amendment to the budget to carry over the funding for phase 1 and phase 2 of TMIP that was not extended in the current fiscal year
in the amount of $194,722 to carry over tourism product development fund dollars for professional services that were budgeted and went unspent in fiscal year 2018-2019 in the BCTDA admin budget for the tourism management and investment plan.
Second.
Those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Chip.
Also by way of introduction, for the next section, I think, you're all aware that, with, Dawn as our new fiscal agent and, new legal counsel, we've been working our way through the formalization of some adopted, ordinances that align with statute 159 and other legislative guidance to kind of, just formalize our policies and procedures. We brought you the signature policy last month. We made some amendments to that and are ready to ask for your approval on that policy. And I also thought this was probably just a good time as we look through your, review of the employee handbook and all these other policies, that we also, take a few minutes to review, the legislation, enabling legislation and its guidance for the roles and responsibilities of the board. And so, Sabrina is on to,
Sabrina is a rock star in the local legal community, and there will be a test later on the details of the employee handbook. I'm sure you've all heard it.
And it's scary when you give the meeting to a lawyer and you're running ahead of schedule. But I will try to keep you running ahead of schedule. So we just thought it would be a good idea. I know that Richard Court has been here for several meetings, and we've been talking a lot about different policies and procedures. And it was a good time to just kind of take a step back and look at, why is all this necessary? Why are we formalizing these things? And really, what is the legislation that, that the TDA is supposed to follow? So and there's all kinds of, statutory interpretation that goes into that, but that's been the consistent interpretation. So just to kind of explain that piece of it. Then the legislative guidance continues. No more than 10% can be used for administrative expenses of the TDA, and the balance goes to this tourism product development fund, which is what we've been talking about a lot in this meeting, right? And that fund, and again, this is directly from the session law that sets up this fund, is to provide financial assistance for major tourism projects in order to significantly increase patronage of lodging facilities in the county. So that guardrail, so to speak, is that the fund is created to provide financial assistance for projects that you determine will increase patronage of lodging facilities in the county. Some other guardrails in the legislative guidance based on the Product Development Committee. It has to review and evaluate proposals from applicants for tourism capital projects and make recommendations regarding use and disposition of the tourism product development fund. I so should have given that in an acronym. I don't know why I didn't. The committee does not have to be comprised solely of members of the authority, but the majority of members of the committee must be persons who are owners or operators of tourist accommodations. For-profit entities are not eligible to receive funds or loans from the Product Development Committee. So these are things maybe you already knew, but we just thought it was a good idea to kind of take a step back and say, really, why are we here? What is our focus? What are the guardrails that the General Assembly has created for us? So when you're looking at what you can control and what you can't control, you have a basic understanding of that. And then finally, we thought it would be a good idea because as lawyers, I joke for some of the other boards that I sit on, I'm the little rain cloud. Like everybody comes up with these great ideas and I come along and go, but wait, and kind of rain on your parade. And so we always think of the worst possible thing that can happen, right? And so you might want to know, well, what's the legal standard for whether or not we're acting within these guardrails and whether or not we're carrying out our duties? And I think typically, as if you've served on other boards that may not be for public authorities, you may have been used to thinking about things like acting in good faith, with due care, with loyalty to the corporation. And courts certainly look at those standards when talking about public officials and public bodies, but they actually articulate the legal standards slightly differently. And what they say is they look to whether a public official has acted capriciously or arbitrarily or in bad faith or in disregard of the law, right? And so one way I sort of think about this is it's the difference in, you all have been given these guardrails. You can't just say, oh, forget about these guardrails, we're going to ignore them, right? That would be acting in disregard of the law, right? So, it's not that different of a standard thinking about acting in good faith, with due care, with loyalty, but it's just described slightly differently for public officials. And things to keep in mind as you're moving forward and conducting your business. Does anybody have questions I can answer about all this? With the adoption of the budget, it just seemed like a good time to sort of bring people back to why we're here and what we're doing, and how some of the rules are. Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Sabrina.
Yes. So, you have behind tab 6, a revised signature policy. I know that this was discussed at the May meeting, when Mr. Cook from my firm was here. We took some of the comments at the May meeting and made some revisions to the policy, and
Chairman move to sign the resolution to officially adopt the policy.
Those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Everyone vote.
I'm done. It's off my head. It came up in the motion.
Motion signals. You're gonna do the employee handbook.
Yeah, but
That's scintillating.
I provided a copy to all of you by email of our employee handbook, just for your information and opportunity to comment or provide feedback. It's been serving us well. It was created initially in consultation with HR Mavens, has subsequently been revised, with due diligence, working with, Craft HR, Services, who's our current consultant. It's been reviewed by legal. Glenn has done a really great job with identifying things that need to be covered and shepherding us through that process. And so as we kind of prepared to give a revision to our staff for the beginning of the fiscal year, we wanted you to be knowledgeable and understanding the policies that we operate under. We are not seeking approval, just giving to you very much.
Motion.
Some motion already.
I motion that.
It's very well.
Alright, okay. Very far ahead schedule. If you want me to talk more.
Okay, city council update, Julie.
Wow.
Nothing.
I don't know that there's anything that we've done in the last couple of months. I think I announced it. The last meeting and it came up again last night, we are gonna be having a work session on hotels, and I don't know the scope of that, whether it's all hotels, downtown hotels, I don't know, but we are all feeling the need for some guardrails, to use somebody else's word, in making this.
We're also gonna, meeting on Tuesday.
Yeah, right, the districts, right, I should talk about that. Tuesday, they're, at 5 o'clock, I think it's, and this is gonna be at the banquet hall at the US Cellular Center. We'll be having a kind of a modified work session on districts, basically what we're gonna do. People have been very frustrated that, thinking that we've just been sitting on our hands this whole time. We've actually been doing a lot of information gathering, we've been getting a lot of legal advice, and now we're just gonna put all of that out in the open for everybody to hear. And then we'll talk about it. It's a work session, so there won't be any decisions made at that. But unlike a traditional work session, we are gonna have public comment at that. So encourage people to come and listen and hear all of the things that we've been hearing, and then provide us input, hopefully based on that more informed place.
That's on July.
It's on Tuesday, yeah, July 2nd, 5 o'clock at the banquet hall.
Thank you. Joe, just to be a little light in front of you, you get 3 minutes.
Yeah, you could push it, probably do it in 3 minutes. So we just passed the budget. The budget was a flat budget. No increase or decrease, but it did sustain a 1 cent decrease that we did last year that some naysayers said that couldn't be sustained. And so we're able to do that. Biggest items I think that, was very popular is the funding for early childhood education, which was about $3.5 million investment, and also affordable housing partnerships to increase workforce housing and affordable housing. That was approximately the same amount. And we were able to do those increases because we had, I think, 4.2% increase in revenue over the previous year. So there's been growth in the approve $15 an hour for full-time employees at Buncombe County. Brought everybody up to that level. Also, we included funding for county strategic plan, which is getting underway. I think we start our meetings in September, and that has not been revised in a long time. Funding the Economic Development Coalition to prepare analysis of industrial commercial sites where we can market to improve the growth. To include funding for that. And we included $45,000 for the Sports Commission. And it was not a very contentious budget. We worked really hard on that, on having board meetings and public input. So it was, I thought it went pretty smooth. John did. His team did a great job in putting everything together. And they did good public input, challenges on some certain areas. But the goal was to make sure that we wanted to be able to meet these needs, but we wanted to be able to keep the tax rate flat.
Thank you, Joe.
Joe, for budget report reminded me of one thing, I can't remember if I mentioned this, we also passed a budget report, and included in that was funding for the next step on the Pivot to Spare. So we fully funded what's the name of the firm? Nelson, something like that. But the planning firm to come in and sort of take the community vision that got adopted now probably 2 years ago and come up with some options for us to move forward.
Can you help us understand the next step after that? So once these plans happen, then are they shopped for a developer, or what happens to make it work?
Don't know that we've gotten that far. I think the proposal is going to be for this firm to give us 3 options, and then, presumably we would settle on one. We would, after some public input and all of that, we would choose one of those to maybe go forward with. An RFP is a possibility, and certainly the city's not going to develop it itself. And obviously, depending on what the option is, funding, what it is, how it gets funded, I don't know. We'll have to see.
Thank you. In the miscellaneous business section, I'll point out the 360i, our marketing firm, is going to be doing a free seminar on August 6th, 9 to 5 at the U.S. Cellular Center banquet room. And that's for any firms in town who need help with your website marketing, your Facebook, any of the things that help you get your name out in front of the public. It's a free seminar, Tuesday, August the 6th, from 9 to 5 at the U.S. Cellular Center banquet. These guys are really dynamite.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And that's available to nonprofits and small businesses or anyone who wants to participate.
It's a great service, and we're just trying to figure out how to do that a little bit better, and the rules are changing on a daily basis almost with search engine optimization. So these guys are comments from the general public. Okay. Yes.
I had a question about when you're going through the slides on the board roles and responsibilities, numerous times the term public was used as the intention of the TDA.
Yes.
And I was wondering if someone could define what they mean by public specifically.
So it's a public entity pursuant to North Carolina law. So that means that, there's a certain set of rules then that apply as it being a public body as opposed to a private entity. Does that?
Because then it seems like
Let me just add a few
Yeah.
things. So, the public purpose of this TDA and every urban development authority in North Carolina is to attract outside revenue to that community for the purpose of economic vitality. Sabrina mentioned, this specifically to build a customer base for local businesses, but obviously that also generates tax revenue and jobs. So the public benefit of this source of public money is to attract outside revenue. And so, you know, for instance, since between 2009 and 2017, an additional $1 billion of economic activity has been attracted to this community through tourism promotion, you know, and bringing people into the community to spend money at local businesses, create jobs, create tax revenue, and general economic vitality. In our case, 25% is dedicated also to the Tourism Product Development Fund grant, which has the additional public benefit of building public amenities that help to attract additional visitors, but also are enjoyed by the community. And in many places, hotel taxes are dedicated to convention centers or large museums that are really 100% focused on their role of attracting visitors to the community. In Buncombe County, our structure has really provided more, since the grants are given as to community projects, so these things that happen are inherently more beneficial to the community, including greenways and sporting facilities and entertainment venues and so on and so forth, about $44 million in the last, since 2001. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
And I think the other piece too is that like, the taxes paid is collected by the hotels, so it's only collected by hotels, and it's paid by out-of-town visitors. And of the total amount, only 23% goes back to hotels. The rest of it, you know, in terms of revenue, the rest of it goes to restaurants, microbreweries, retail shops, artists, and you know, every 1,200 hospitality partners we have in the community. So that's kind of the big picture.
Tim, also that money goes back to local taxpayers, because
Yes.
if, you know, if Buncombe County, if TDA did not fund some of the projects for Buncombe County that it has, then we would have probably funded some of those out of our general fund, which would cause your property tax to go up.
On tourism, also just the spending that occurs from the people who visit the community generates 31% of all sales tax revenue, which obviously has a particularly important impact on the county budget and its ability to provide services for residents who live here. Visitor spending also accounts for 19% of property tax revenue.
Jim, I have one comment to the good.
Yes.
I forgot, but this past week I was at the graduation for hospitality camp at Early High School. And I just want to thank John and the team over at Cranbrook Union. They were a big hit. Those kids, they loved it. It was they got rock stars drinking over there, and you know, they talked a lot about it. And it makes a difference in these kids' lives, and a lot of them aspire to be in this industry. It's a hands-on camp, where they have the opportunity to go and shadow a lot of different businesses, whether it be retail or whether it be within the hotel industry or restaurants. And, I just want to thank y'all for your participation in that. They really love it.
Great. Thanks, John. Okay. There's no other comments. I will. Yes, John.
I just wanted to make you aware that we'll be ramping up for the 2019 audit. You know, we just finished the 2019.
No way.
It seems like we just finished it. So CLA is putting together a contract, and I will give it to Stephanie, so we get on the board agenda for July. That's approve it. And start that process.
I hope Gary's listening closely to that, because I'm going to be lateraling the ball to him in the near future. So, okay.
So
Thank you.
before we adjourn, this is Jim's last meeting as our board chair, not his last meeting as a board member. So I'd just like to recognize the amazing job that you've done. And you know, we've so appreciated your support and your leadership and your influence on the success of the community.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I mean, it's been a real privilege for me to be, to make the friends here and to be a part of this organization. These are really special people who are not only leaders in their business areas, but are just good people who care about the community, who are doing a lot of charitable work on the outside, are even at a personal level, good spouses and parents and occasionally grandparents. And so, I mean, it's really been a real value to me to be a part of this organization to be working with people of this quality. So thank you very much.
Great job.